Yo, what's good? This is MMA Toad. I'm going to run y'all through my breakdown of UFC 313. Unfortunately, it's not the Gaethje vs. Hooker matchup many of us were expecting to be fight of the year. But we do have a gamer step in out of physique. In equal terms, just about with Gaethje, 18 months, ACL injury. Gaethje, as we know, coming off a hard flatline KO loss. Bless Holloway, likely lining up to fight Gaethje, or Dustin. Dustin's last dance. Never became a champ, but maybe we get him that BMF belt. Dustin will probably retire as one of the greatest fighters in history, never to become champ. Picks for the week are in. 2025, the dogs have been showing up. Somehow I had this weird just feeling after Hoofy's last performance that maybe Green, he was doing okay until he wasn't. When he loses these fights, he loses them. So if you hammer Hoofy, I'd probably go by KO. But when Green's smooth with it and finds his rhythm, that cardio that is really good as well, he's a gamer in that second going into third round. We'll see what he can do. Ignacio looking pretty good as well. Big win off Noche. I think this man can snipe. We'll see if Jalen Turner can mix it on him, find his opportunities. I think it would come by a submission for Turner. But he does have that snappy power. I just question his ability to take it. We all know he can give it. And obviously the main event, Poatan could just line himself up for that super fight if he did something impressive with Ankalaev. But I'm not going to lie, I'll be pretty upset if it's Jones and Poatan. It needs to be Aspinall. Shortest fight time average in UFC history. Incredible power, and we never really get to see his whole tool belt. He ends these fights typically in the first minute or less, minute and a half. And we know he's got some amazing jiu-jitsu. We need someone like Jones. Even though in Jones' defense, he's had his better days. He's at the end of his career. But we need somebody with that ability to mix it. And honestly, I see Tom being able just to ragdoll Jones in the grappling exchanges. Jones would have to catch something with a kick. He likely eats a big hand, goes to sleep that way instead. If it's $30 million, pay it. I think it would be that million gate. I think it would be one of the biggest fights in UFC history, next to Islam and Topuria. If all that's happening sometime relatively close together, it'd be interesting. But I would argue who's ever going to do it first, because we need something big in 2025. Last year, we had UFC 300 to look forward to. It's when I made the birth of this channel. In another week and a half or so, we're coming up on my 1 year. We've had a great presence in IG, pushing 800 followers. Trading cards, picks, and fighter interaction. We got a channel. Hit me up if you want in. Cool little group. Get to talk to some of these fighters that are in camp, waiting for their next opponent. Chilling out, watching a bunch of degenerates post their picks, post their locks, and occasionally some dumbass memes. So hit me up if y'all want in. It's a fun little time. All right, y'all. Without further ado, here's my official breakdown. Starting on the early prelims, we got Ozzy Diaz taking on Jordan Mustard Santos. I think Santos a little bit more well-rounded in this fight. Could catch himself a finish. Ozzy generally going for it. If it doesn't go his way, he's getting finished. It's either 100% finish rate or he's getting finished. And that's exactly how I think it happens. I think Santos catches him on the feet, takes him to the ground, ends up hitting a vicious ground and pound knockout. If not, maybe hunt for that submission. Yeah, I don't see this one going to the judges. I'll look at the prop under 2.5, sprinkle perhaps. Next fight on the card, kind of just chucked in between some canceled bouts. You got Chris Gutierrez taking on John Castana. I like Chris in this fight on the feet. I think John's key to victory here is trying to take Chris down. Chris is like a very technical, kind of sit at range. He doesn't put himself in a lot of opportunities for John to catch him on the feet. And I see Chris just playing chess better. Chris isn't like the biggest guy for the weight class in the world, but he's technical. And I think he gets a decision. Moving up the card, Marion Santos taking on Francis Marshall. Marshall was looking really good coming in. People were like, hey, this guy, was he like a guy in New York, I think, like a fireman of a sort. Anyways, a lot of people had high hopes. He's had a tough go out. Decent level of opposition, just kind of been hit and miss. Isaac Dolgarian, William, as we know, just fought last week. Decent level of opposition. Nice win over Bazooka. But anyways, I think Marion takes him out on the feet in this fight as well. Hits his knockout. Probably between first, second round. Another fight. I'd be curious to look at the line. Lightweight, featherweight. We'll see how the transition is moving up, of course. Or sorry, the transition down for Marshall. Even further under 2.5 for that reason. Now, a fight that I'm almost confident we can say will not go to the judges. If Carlos Leal touches Morono at all, Morono's falling out. This guy has a solid ground game, but he struggles with his ability to get the fights to the ground. And we all know that these jiu-jitsu guys, if they can't take it, it's really rough for them on the feet. He's had like a weird mixture of success, higher level of opposition. Obviously, he's got that in his back pocket. A lot more fight experience as well. But it hasn't really been for the best as of late. It's weird to see Morono just kind of go on this little skid. If he takes 3 in a row, I wouldn't be too surprised if he reconsidered or the UFC just kept him on the early prelims as well. I know his team's, affiliated and so forth, so it's kind of weird for them, I think, in some situations to get a guy out of there that's going to be around at the events anyways and other fighters' corners and so forth. So, I don't know, maybe he'll get that Anthony Smith treatment in the end. All right, moving up the card. I like the whole Pereira. Bruno's a beast. He's got power. The issue is he's not the biggest guy in the world at middleweight. Arman showed that he could stand there with Shara Bullet, and I know it didn't age well because Bullet, went the distance with MVP and didn't really do much at all in that fight. But we're talking about a guy who lost a chess match against one of the greatest players next to Anderson Silva and Adesanya. I mean, no disregard to him at all. It was also a really awkward spinning back fist, double spinning back fist. Like, who throws that, right? So I think Bruno's going to have a hard time. I understand the line in this fight, Bruno being a dog, but I'll take that at any time by knockout. I don't see him being able to keep on the outside and avoid the gunfights as much as Boost did. It showed to be very effective against Bruno, especially wearing out that cardio, taking away from some of that effective power that he possesses in those early rounds where he's more than likely to get a knockout. So if I was to take Pereira, I wouldn't mind hitting this. I see these guys by knockout. I see these guys getting into gunfights early and late in the fight, and I could see Bruno hitting, if not a second, third round knockout. Moving up the card, Joshua Van's trying to take an O of one of the soyest fighters I've ever seen, Roy Tatsura, or Saruya? Yeah, that's how you say it. Anyways, I think Van's going to piece dude up on the fucking feet. I did see this old fighter, Ray. He went into the third round in a fight he was already winning, went to signal for the hand, the high five, shot in for the takedown, did some really soy shit. Joshua Van's a gamer. He possesses these fast little combination, does some great body work. I see Joshua Van getting a decision in this fight. I try to stay away from the flyweights via decision or finish, unless you're getting a fighter like Usyk, Moreno, Tatsuro Taira, obviously Manel. There's certain fighters, Kai. There's just certain fighters that you're like, yeah, I don't mind the idea of getting a finish in this fight. But Joshua Van, he's a death by 1,000 cuts. If there was an atom weight, he'd be fighting at that. I like his style, though. He's a gamer. He can take it. He can definitely fucking take it. So even though he's gotten a couple losses, lost that O, he's had a tough go out, higher level of opposition that has only continued to age pretty well. So I like his odds in that fight. Joshua Van's going to be my lock on the entire card. And I like the fight going the distance for him. Although I might avoid that line in any parlay. But I do like the idea of that fight going the distance. So we'll see. Moving up the card, a very interesting matchup for Curtis Blades. It's not your top 5, top 10. We're just chucking a guy that's doing pretty good in the West Coast scene, United States heavyweight, making his UFC debut. Rizvan Kunaev, he's not going to do shit to Curtis. Curtis is going to be more well-rounded. I could see him trying to shoot for a takedown, getting maybe hit along the way, just transitioning into a takedown to recover. Just like Almeida, Curtis working off the side of dude's face with some vicious elbows that leads into some ground and pound. I like Curtis's fight instinct and ability in the scrambles. He's not giving himself up for terrible positioning, and I think that's where he's just a little bit more athletic and well-rounded than a lot of these blobby-ass heavyweights that, they're like a turtle on their back. Blades is going to fight to secure the fight on the feet, and if it's going to the ground, be the one on top, leaning that power, leaning that weight, wearing that fatigue and pressure to his opponent. So I like Blades' ability to get the fight done by TKO, more than likely some ground and pound. If he opens him up on the ground with some 12-6, I wouldn't be too surprised as well. Moving up the card, I took King Green in this, y'all. I took him because Roofy, fighting nerd, very favorable in this fight. Crazy disrespectful odds. Had a sprinkle on Green. I understand probably more times than not they run this fight, Roofy might win it. The reason I'm taking Green to pull the upset is, Green had a tough go out against Patty. He opened up to it and owned up to it. It's like Patty hit me with a kick. I lost my footing and then transitioned for a takedown. People were like, why did I shoot? He's owning up to it. He's not actually trying to say that he slipped. He gives Patty his flowers. But when you break it down, Green has already had these tests at the higher levels of the lightweight division. Whereas to, Roofy, his last time out with James Lontop did not look that great. He lost a round in that fight. And I think if Bobby Green fought James, it would be a unanimous decision all 3 rounds, not a 2-1. I mean, Bobby, when he gets going, he gets going. But when he loses, it's a tough loss, right? So I will be also, I got Green on the money line, and the odds are so crazy. Check this. I'm still throwing Hoofy by knockout because I think if it hits, it's going to be a finish, as Bobby's been struggling to absorb some of these shots. But in defense against some of the better strikers, right? Jalen Turner, he's got a lot of pop on that shot. And it's crazy that the man makes lightweight. He's literally as big as Hamzat in a photo when Hamzat was fighting at welterweight. It's kind of wild. Moving up the card, I'm going to take Luciano over Lemos. I think Lemos, yes, same kind of situation. She's fought higher level of opposition. She's been there. She went from being a potential contender to getting knocked down, losing some of these fights. But look at this. Against Wei Li, right? Wei Li beat her. Against who else? Jessica Andrade. She is fighting at the top of the division, and she's winning and losing. There's a nice win over Mackenzie Dern. But I will say this. Luciano, I think she's coming up. I think she's catching Lamos on a bit of a back and forth skid. I think she's hungrier. I think her ability to mix it is quite well. Although Lamos, if she was more grappler heavy, I would be more swayed for her. I think she's going to outdo Lemos on the feet with the striking. And if Lemos was able to mix it better, I would feel a lot better. We know that Lemos is pretty much a pure striker for the most part and leans on her boxing. Moving up to the almost co-main event fight right before it. Things are going to be heating up. This is when we're all dialed in. Last one might have lost your interest, maybe not. This one from here on out is banger. So we're going to take on Jalen Turner fighting Ignacio. I like Ignacio a lot in this fight, coming off an impressive win. UFC Noche. He took on Manel Torres and just sniped the shit out of him. Ignacio, he possesses that rangy snapping power similar to Turner. But what I dislike about Turner is his ability to take it. The loss over Moicano, UFC 300, did not age well for him. His victory over Bobby Green looked incredible. He can take it. He just can't give it. I don't think the best. And that's why I'm siding with Ignacio. I think Turner, if he really wanted to, I know it's a big weight cut up for him, jumping up to welterweight. I think if Turner loses this one, let's make the move to welterweight. Let's see what that looks like for you, because I don't doubt his ability to give it. It's just his ability to take it. And that weight cut's got to be extraordinary, and I think it impacts that. So we'll see. Moving on to your co-main event, Justin Highlight Gaethje takes on Rafael Fiziev. I'm going to go Gaethje. I locked it in a week ago thinking that line would move. To my surprise, it's actually gone up. Went from about 125 to 136 or so. Rafael Fiziev coming off an 18-month skid with that ACL injury against Gamrot. Got a lot of octagon rust of his own and also stepping in 2 weeks' notice. In a 3-round fight, I think he'll be okay. I do worry about his ability to fight at a competitive level with Gaethje. What does that cardio look like? And I expect that Gaethje's going to focus in on that leg and just resume his kick-heavy game like he likes to open up in the first, work on in the second. I'm staying away from distance on this fight. I'm going to throw it in one of my long shots, under 2.5. But I expect that Gaethje wins by decision. And if he loses, it's by knockout against Fiziev. Moving up into the main event. Alex Poatan taking on Magomed Ankalaev. I like this fight. This is the fight that truly earns your respect for Poatan, because up to this point, we've all been saying, oh, he's just boxing, another boxer. He's just kickboxing another kickboxer, a Muay striker. Here we are. We have a grappler who has been very dominant. His approach is very safe. He doesn't put himself out there to generally absorb and take a lot of brutal shots. Poatan's been training with Strickland for this reason, mimicking that jab and that steep down the middle. We'll see if it pays dividends for Poatan. I think on the feet, his game plan's also like Gaethje. Probably work to the leg. Watching that tape back on Jan expose that Magomed has a hard time with those leg kicks. It only further shuts down the wrestling as well. You heard Henry Cejudo talking about it after the Song Yadong fight, like, where was the takedown? Well, Song chopped on them legs in the first round, took the game away, right? So, Poatan, he's got some of the meanest leg kicks in the game. His ability to switch stances one way or another when that left hook hits, it changes you. I think we're going to witness a Poatan knockout by 3rd round. But yeah, sad we again didn't get the fight between Gaethje and Hooker. To be honest, I think Gaethje's lucky that Fiziev, also much like him, not as super active, coming off an injury of his own, also stepping in, 2 weeks' notice. So I think this is exactly what Gaethje needs. Bring himself back in for a potential Dustin fight, Charles fight. Maybe the UFC will just get lucky and call his way after Islam and Topuria. I would expect that Islam could potentially run it back with Ilya if Ilya pulled the upset, but I don't expect that to happen either. I expect Islam to win that fight. And that's going to be potentially fight of the year. Obviously, we need Jones to fight Aspinall. It's the fight that makes the most sense. You got a dominant interim champ, shortest fight time, UFC history. Pretty much dominated most of the top 10 within the first round. I don't think Jones has much of an excuse to fight anybody else without having that title stripped at the very least. If he wants to pursue super fights, legacy fights, and admit that he's not trying to compete at the top of the world, then that's great. The ego of Jones won't let that happen. He deems himself the baddest man on the planet. Dana, a lot of his supporters and fans do the same. So he wants to be compensated in case that he's proven that he's not. Pay the man up. Let's see the fight. That's going to do it for me for now. Thank you all for tuning in. Huge trading card drop. We got Justin Gaethje card just dropped. Poatan, Ankalaev, and I'm going to do a general fight night. So if you get a chance to check that out, MMA Toad on IG. Much appreciated. Trying to transition, do more YouTube. Not this card, but eventually I'll be doing some more fight companions. We've done a few so far. Like, comment, subscribe, and tune in for those in the future. All right, y'all. Much love.